right. Welcome, Cyril.
All right. How y'all doing? This early in the day.
It's early in the day. We're on New Orleans time. It's all good. Well, I heard, speaking of that, I did an interview with Devin and...
Don't believe nothing he said.
Devin said hanging out with you last night was why he was late. So.
Yeah, we hadn't seen each other in years, man. So, yeah, we got a chance to hang out and laugh. And, it was great.
Had a good time. So far on this cruise, you have performed with Troy Trombone Shorty Andrews on the opening night, both those sets.
Thank you.
So I don't know what the plan was, but apparently it didn't exactly come out how you guys had talked about it, what you ended up doing with him on stage.
Well, yeah, I mean, the first set, yes. That one went off without a hitch, just like it was planned. But the second one, once the Indian came out, that kind of changed everything, because that's a spirit. It's very spiritual. So once that happened, whatever the direction was before that, that was the end of all of that, and then something new began. And me and Lil Chief started dancing, and like they say, the rest is history. We just couldn't resist.
Well, Troy, I mean, he's been doing this long enough at this point to roll with it when something like that goes on. Because y'all were doing. What was the song you were supposed to do? It was.
Man, I don't have no idea. All I know is that I remember that we had done a little bit of Unane before, and it worked. So I said, well, while they got this little lull in the action, let's dive back into that, and that's what we did.
And then you had Juan Boudreaux, the Mardi Gras Indian in full regalia. He's dancing, so yes, it became it.
He started it. It wasn't me. Yeah, so yeah, that and once that element got involved, it was like, my Uncle Jolly took over.
Uncle Jolly, Big Chief George Landry, your uncle, the one who kind of started a lot of this stuff rolling for you guys.
Not kind of, really.
Did, yeah.
Yeah, because, a lot of people don't know that record, the Wild Chapatulas, was actually the first Neville Brothers record. We had all been in the studio doing stuff with, in different configurations, but never together with the intention of coming out with a project together, So that was actually the first Neville Brothers record.
Right. Even it was billed as the Wild Chapatulas. It was in essence the first Neville
Speaking
Brothers record.
Speaking of billing, when we went to California, we played the Monterey. I don't know if it was they calling it the Pop Festival or whatever they was calling it at that point, and the placard had the Wild Chapatulas in big, huge letters, and down at the bottom, and the Neville Brothers Band. So, that's how it all started, Yeah.
So that right there, that put it all in perspective. That's like, all right, he gets the credit, he started it, and we're coming after it. So, well, it's got to make you feel good, though. I mean, to see a guy like Troy Andrews, Trombone Shorty, picking up the thread that, and he's very much connected to what you guys are doing. I mean, to see a guy of his generation picking it up, and then you're coming up behind, your son Omari and his band, who are booked on this cruise next year, along with you. Yep. Yes. Yeah, Omari, Neville, and the Fuel, they are booked for 2026 Big Easy Cruise, along with Cyril as well. That's right.
Yes.
So that's got to make you feel good, because obviously,
Well, man, Troy, it was like we are unofficial members of each other's family. He's unofficial Neville, I'm unofficial Andrews. So we took him on tour with us a couple of different times. And not just us. He went out with Mac. He went out with different people because everybody saw, what he had, and that's the tradition in New Orleans. If you see it, shine it up, help him shine it up, and
Absolutely.
help him be able
Absolutely.
to present it, better, and like him and my son, Trumpet Black, Glenn David Andrews, all had a band called the New Orleans Jazz Babies.
Those jazz babies.
Yeah, back in the day, all in the same band, and now all of them are leading their own bands, and I just happen to be in one of them, Cyril Neville and a few. That's basically when I perform, that's the band that I perform with, and it's like being on stage with my brothers, with the Meters and the Wild Chapel Toolers, all in one.
That's right. That's right.
With a little Nirvana thrown in there.
A little Nirvana. A little Nirvana. But this time around, you're the elder statesman.
Man, and they like reminded me of cats, people that I've named the bands, and it was like, who is that? Like Jefferson Airplane. And people the different bands from back in the day that they remind me of the Clash. When I mentioned the Clash, who was that? But after when I turned them on to who it was, and then that's the other thing that's been happening. I started off giving to them. Now I'm starting to get stuff back from them. I'm getting hip to a lot of different stuff that I wasn't hip to, Yeah.
Weird New Orleans music trivia before he died. Clash. Professor Longhair was supposed to go on tour with them as their opening act right before he died.
Right.
Yeah, which is crazy. I mean, but they respected the roots of New Orleans, and so Professor Longhair, they're going to take him out on the road.
But it's not so crazy when you think about the fact that if there's music on Mars, New Orleans music influenced it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And look, I mean, all those British bands that came up in the, in the 60s and 70s, I mean, the Beatles, Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin, all of them worshiped New Orleans music and were huge fans of it. So,
well, it's been established that rock and roll is the child of rhythm and blues.
right.
That one didn't come before the other, and like, I heard this from these guys' mouths, like Mick and Keith and them. As far as they were concerned, they were a blues band.
Right.
Just in the model of the people who they revered. That's why he was blowing on a harmonica.
Right.
He was the first band of that kind to have somebody up there blowing harmonica. Because that's what they saw. That's what they liked. They even named their band after one of his songs,
Right.
Rolling Stone.
Right.
So in their eyes, same thing with the Beatles. They thought they were playing the blues.
Right.
Which in a sense, that's what they did. And just basically brought it to an audience that maybe without them, that audience may never have really gotten into that,
Well, sure. Well, and you look at this past New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival where the Rolling Stones played, and they brought Irma Thomas out to sing "Time Is on My Side" with them because they basically they copied her arrangement of the song, and it became their first top 10 hit. So that was like a moment 60 years in the making, where 1964 they did it. 60 years later, they bring her out, and Mick flat out said, we heard this great song by this lady here. We were honored to do it. We're bringing her out.
And finally, after all that time, set the record straight because she stopped doing it because people were talking to her like, okay, you doing those Beatles that
Rolling Stone song.
Yeah, you doing that. No, that's not how that went. That's
Right.
And so that was definitely something that needed to happen, that should have happened. And then they also had Dumpster Funk.
Right, the band led by Ivan Neville, your nephew, and Ivan, of course, played with Keith Richards in his band, The Expensive Winos.
The Expensive Winos.
Right.
What a name for a band.
The Expensive Winos, I know. So yeah, Dumpster Funk played right in front of the Rolling Stones at Jazz Fest.
Right.
You know, part of that acknowledgement. So, all right, well, and we're going to talk about your history touring with the Rolling Stones and the Meters in a little bit here. But I want to go back even further. You know, New Orleans has changed a whole lot. The music has changed. If you could, in a couple of sentences, describe the New Orleans of your youth, just the kind of world that sort of forged you as a youngster and a young man, and that kind of steered you in the path that you ended up taking. What was that New Orleans like? Because it was obviously very different than today.
Well, I was very, very lucky. First of all, my brother Art was a band leader.
Art Neville, yep.
Yeah, as a teenager. And the band rehearsed right in our living room. So when I was like preteen, I was being introduced to people like Kid Jordan,
The great
and
sax player, yeah.
Smokey Johnson,
Great drummer, yeah.
James Black,
Another great drummer, yeah.
James Booker,
Great piano player.
Idris Muhammad, which he was Leo Morris then he later became
Idris Muhammad, another great drummer. Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
You
yep.
know, and oh yeah, and the little white dude, Mac.
The little white dude, Mac, a.k.a. Mac Rebenak, a.k.a. Dr. John. Yes. Dr. John,
You know?
yes.
And
That little white dude, yeah.
I mean, it don't get no cooler than that. That's how I grew up seeing that you know, that whole and learning about that certain elements of the music business that didn't have nothing to do with business. Oh no, it didn't have nothing to do with music.
Right.
You
Right.
know, and you know, some of it funny and some of it not so funny. But that was not just at my house. In my neighborhood, my village, there was the Alcorn family.
Mm-hmm.
Soon as Art got finished rehearsing, they started rehearsing. Soon as they got finished rehearsing, then Warner Williams and his band, the Arbiteers, would start practicing. And then you had other different variations of the Baptiste family sprinkled in different places. And then there was a guy that everybody used to wonder what kind of animal he was killing when he was playing the bagpipes. Because wasn't nobody out there. He played bagpipes.
Is that James Rivers? Is that what we're talking
James
about?
Rivers.
James Rivers, yeah. James
You know?
Rivers.
So yes, that's all in one. That's just in one neighborhood. Now you leave from my neighborhood and walk to the 6th Ward, and that's where the Andrews family, the Nelson family, the Hill family, which that's 3 different families, but at some point they all join into one, and then you got Trombone Shorty and James out of that mix. But inside of that family too was Papoose.
Walter
Nelson,
Papoose Nelson,
who basically was Dr. John's instructor, who was Mac's guitar instructor.
Right.
You know?
Right. He played with Fats Domino, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this was a sought after studio cat too. And that was the other thing about Mac. When he was a teenager, he was already producing. He was already in the studio producing, you know, like my brother Art, for instance, was right there at the beginning of what became rock and roll.
Yeah.
You know, which was basically rhythm and blues, speeded up a little bit, or with a little hillbilly twinge to it. You know.
Well, yeah, he was doing all those singles, Chaduki Doo, and all that kind of stuff. All these things, all those songs, like back in it, which was at that time
Matter
period.
of fact,
where
he wrote that one, and he wrote the one. What's Going On is the name of it. The one about I drink all the tea in China to know what's going on and all this. You know. So yeah, that's how I grew up with that, in that kind of surroundings. You know.
So, did you know though early on that was the path you wanted to take? Because, you know, there was all this great stuff going on musically, but there was also some bad stuff going on as well. I mean, there was, you know, it was tough to be a black person in New Orleans at that time with the police and all this sort of stuff.
It's still tough.
Still tough, yeah, still tough, still tough, still tough. There's that, and I mean, you know, you guys kind of went down some wrong roads at various points. What was it that solidified for you that, yeah, music is my path, music is going to take me away from the bad stuff and to the good?
Well, basically, music and culture was the magic carpet that allowed me to float above all of the other stuff, you know, which I didn't float out of it. I floated through some of it, you know? But I didn't. But fortunately, I didn't get stuck in none of it.
Right.
You know, and that became part of the, I guess, the, you know, that was one of the tools of the trade. If you can survive all of this, then you worthy of the other stuff over here. But if you don't,
right,
if you don't slay these dragons, you know, right? So yeah, somebody gets it. Yeah.
She gets it. Yeah. You've told this story before a bunch of times, and I'm gonna have you tell it again, just for the people that haven't heard it, because I think it's such an incredible story that encapsulates going through the craziness and ending up at the right spot. Do you know what story this is? The story of the nightclub with the where you got cut.
Oh,
tell that story real quick.
Yeah, you know, even recently, right before the pandemic, I was working on a tribute to Louis Armstrong record, and one of the songs that came up, we wrote a couple of songs, and one of them was about that night and about the fact that I got 132 stitches, and then went back and finished the gig. You know.
Look, right, just to set it up, you were doing a gig at the club.
Yeah.
You went outside. You got in this altercation. You got cut badly. You went to the hospital, got 132 stitches, and then came back to the club and finished the show.
Yes.
Yeah. Of course. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah. You know, that's how we do it in New Orleans, especially during that time. You know.
Well, but that's an example though of the determination to do the show, to do the music. Like you weren't going to let that little incident, that little minor injury, stop you from playing that night.
I survived it. You know, so was a toss-up, a night in the hospital or a night back finishing up the gig. It wasn't even they didn't have to guess which one that was going to be.
That's right.
You know.
That's right. No, I got you. Like she said, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. There you go. There you go.
I learned a couple of new dance steps and everything during that altercation. You know.
Oh my gosh. So let's fast forward a little bit. Art Neville, your older brother, formed the Meters in the late 1960s. They have a couple of minor national hits, but they get a track record, they get something going. It's Art Neville, it's Leo Nocentelli on guitar, George Porter Jr. on bass, Joseph Zigaboo Moodleast on drums. They did a bunch of records for Josie, lose that record deal, end up getting signed to Warner Brothers, and then are going to go out on the road with the Rolling Stones as the opening act for a stadium tour with the Stones. Before that, you'd already started working with them a little bit, but then that tour, that was what really convinced them that they needed to bring you on as a permanent fixture in the band, as the front man?
Well, I mean, that's the story I heard, you know. Yeah, basically they needed a front man. They needed somebody to kind of Mick Jagger things up.
Mick Jagger things up. You know, that's a verb. To Mick Jagger is to, yes, right, right.
So they thought about me. Actually, at that point, I was living in New York, me and Aaron, and Charles was doing a thing as the Wild Chapel Toolers.
In New York at the time?
Yeah, it was Aaron playing piano, me playing conga drums, and Charles playing sax. And we even we got on at this place called Catch a Rising Star. Yep. And like the guy that introduced us, his name is Richard Belzer. He was a up and coming comedian at that time, and he did the show. And he said the guy who auditioned us, when he was describing us, he said basically I thought it was a stick up. When they cast, when they walked in, the way they were dressed and everything, the way they looked, I thought I said, oh my goodness, this is definitely a stick up. You know?
When you guys walked in,
And they
the
said,
guy thought.
but they turned out to be really nice guys. They give them a round of applause. The wild chuppers, something, whatever they call it. You know, and
Thought it was a stick
so
up.
yeah, that whole thing, the culture and the music, is what helped me, but not just me, but a few of my contemporaries get rise above all of the rest of the stuff that grabbed some of our contemporaries and never let go.
Right. That's right. That's right. So, I mean, you basically went from playing clubs in New Orleans to playing stadiums opening for the Stones on that tour. Did you find it hard to make that transition to go from these little rooms to playing a stadium?
What? No, because we had done things like what was called the Chitlin Circuit,
Mm-hmm.
which was basically a bunch of theaters: the Howard Theater, the Uptown Theater in Philadelphia, the Apollo.
Yep.
So that was, you got to play for pretty big audiences playing those theaters.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't like we hadn't really, we hadn't played a Rolling Stones audience. No,
Right.
that was because nobody had played a Rolling Stones audience.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, that was the first time for that. And what was the other thing that was really interesting about that is the line of people who we knew had that place before us, that they had got driven off for the tour in some form or fashion, like Prince. And they actually they chased Prince off for the tour, you know. Because they wanted to see the Rolling Stones. They didn't come to see
And
all
Prince
that
wasn't
stuff.
working. It
You're
wasn't working.
talking about the opening act gig, man. Sometimes that's like, wow, oh my goodness. Can anybody say Sacrificial Lamb? You know? Yeah.
But didn't Mick Jagger take up for you guys at one gig? Didn't
Well,
he come?
he basically came out and people started cheering and everything, and he, okay, y'all want to see the Rolling Stones? He did it again. See, well, shut up. These are my friends, some of the best musicians in the world. You either listen to them or you're not going to hear no Rolling Stones.
There you go.
Right.
There you go.
And and we got to do our gig.
And you got to do your gig. The records you made in those days with the Meters, I mean, they've all kind of been passing big anniversary. I mean, those records are all now, what, 40, 50 years old now,
Yeah.
coming up, like Rejuvenation,
50.
50, right, 50. Fire on the Bayou coming up. Which of those records do you think was the one that best crystallized what the Meters were about? What was the Meters at their best on all those records you did with them, would you say?
Well, it's all of them. Cause,
Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, because, a lot of that stuff was all done at the same time. It just was sold at different times, but it was all one gumbo that had been cooked, and then had different servings of it served up at different opportunities.
So it all came from the same like batch of writing and recording
It's
and
the
stuff.
same thing with the band. The band came out of Art Neville and the Neville Sounds, which was the same cats, but with the Neville brothers, the four Neville brothers, along with Zig, Leo, George, and
Right. It was all the same guys as you were describing earlier. Everybody was playing all these gigs together, and I mean that was it was just in
and
the,
that,
was
it
in
was
the air.
Art Neville and the Neville Sounds, and when they wound up the studio band for Alan Toussaint, that is when they got the chance to, when they weren't working on somebody else's material, they got a chance to work on some of their own stuff, and that's where those records came from. and somebody was smart enough to take that and go to New York with it, and again, the rest is history.
The rest is history. The rest is history. And this is another one of my favorite stories from you guys in those days was the photo shoot for the Fire on the Bayou record. So the photo on the cover of this
so
record.
you know about that, huh?
Oh yeah, the photo on the record. It's this kind of. It's hard to tell because it's kind of I don't know overexposed or bleached out, but it's these guys in a swamp basically, and it wasn't a set. It wasn't a movie set.
It's in Chafalaya Basin.
Which is a real swamp, yes. So they took you guys out there and to take these photos for some reason.
Yeah.
And what happened?
Well, we were disturbing the real inhabitants of that area's peace. That's basically what was so. Now, the guys in the boat, and we had to get out of the boat and stand on this little island to take these pictures. Okay. Now, unbeknownst to us, there was a mother snake who had her nest there, and we was disturbing that, and she wasn't having it. And so it was like the scene of the Three Stooges movie with all of us trying to get up this one tree. And one guy would try to get up, somebody else would pull him down, and he'd try to get up, you know. So when you see the picture, you see everybody else is really, really close up to the front, and you see the picture of me, and I'm way in the back. And that's because I respect the fact that we was in somebody else's house, and moving their furniture around and everything, and they wasn't having it. So anyway, finally they got to hurry up and take the picture and get us off of that island back into a boat. And, that's what that. Now when you see that picture, you'll see, well, why is Cyril so far away from everybody?
Yes, there you go. Look up the Fire on the Bayou album cover, and you know the story. All right, let's fast forward a little bit to the Neville brothers. As you said earlier, you guys started really playing with Jolly and did that Wild Chapatoulas record. You started making records on your own. And I think, certainly for me and probably a lot of other folks, the Yellow Moon record was just a definitive statement of New Orleans music. So that was the record you guys did with Daniel Lanois, the producer who did U2 records and Peter Gabriel records, and I think he had just finished a Bob Dylan record right before he worked with you guys.
Right.
So describe a little bit of the process of making that record with Lanois, and I'm going to ask you this, and then we'll talk about another record where you had experiences with another producer maybe that didn't go quite as well. So what was it about working with Lanois that created that magic that was captured on that Yellow Moon record?
Well, first of all, at that time, he was the hottest producer out there. So just that in itself was a plus for us. And for him, the material that he wound up getting a chance to work with was like he said the stuff that he had never heard before, things that he had never really experienced before. So and what his reference was the Wild Chapatoulas record.
That was the record he was listening to, and that was
Yes.
giving him ideas for what he wanted to do with you guys.
And then all of the older art stuff, the older Aaron stuff, and whatever we could find on Charles, what Charles had done with Jack Bruce and some of the other people he had recorded with, to make up that whole gumbo of how do I take these four guys and make them this one thing, which that was already happening. We knew how to do it. It's just somebody outside the family. Well, how does that actually? How do you guide that?
Right.
The thing is, you don't.
The thing is, you don't.
You get out of the way, and then we know what to do after that,
Right.
So, but and then him having what he got to work with, like for instance, he came to Benny's
Benny's Blues Bar.
Benny's Bar, and me and Darryl and Willie. That's what we was doing in our spare time. We was
This is Willie Green, the drummer,
me, Willie Green,
and Daryl Johnson,
Darryl
bass
Johnson, the
player.
bass player of the Neville Brothers, and a couple of other cats got together, and we started a reggae band. But it was in New Orleans, and it was uptown, so it wound up a second line reggae band. You know, thanks to Willie Green's foot.
Like the
And
Willie
his-
Green, yeah, that
you know,
bass. Yeah.
in other words, we learned everything the same way that the guys in Jamaica did the songs, the ones we liked. And then we would do what Gerald Tillman taught everybody to do, is that you flip it.
You flip it.
Yes.
Meaning what?
Meaning you take it and you make it a New Orleans song now. It might have been from Jamaica before, but now, you know, and we all knew that it was 360 degrees anyway. We knew that our music had influenced reggae. You know?
Right. I mean, the guys in Jamaica were
Yeah.
listening to AM New Orleans radio stations, and that filtered into what they did.
Well, Fats went down there in 1954 or 55 and just messed everything up. Yeah,
Fats Domino went down there and played in Jamaica.
Nothing was ever the same after that, you know. Yeah.
All right, so circle. So yeah, you guys, and just for those who don't know, Benny's Blues Bar was located on Is it on
the
Valence,
corner
right off
of
Valence?
Camp and Valence.
Camp and Valence in their neighborhood, and Benny's was famously. How do we describe it? It wasn't fancy. It'd be the
No.
opposite.
But it was like one of those things that after a while, people understood that if they came to New Orleans and they didn't go to Benny's, they hadn't really been to the New Orleans of that time.
Right.
You know.
Right.
And that's what it kind of became. It started off with us just playing music for our neighbors at Benny's Bar on Sundays, and we only was playing the blues. But there was a little station called WWOZ Radio starting out just at the same time. So on Monday nights, Jay Munkady had a show.
Jay Munkady, the famous, infamous harmonica player and
Yes.
character, shall we
Yes.
say? Charitably, yes, character, yes. Yeah.
And he would talk about it. So now we starting to get maybe we about 3 months into it. Now we starting to get Tulane students,
Right.
you know, and further on down the line, just curious, you know. That's how things is in New Orleans. People will be on their way home from work and pass and see a crowd, and then pull over. So we can see what's going on, see what's happening. I'm gonna be late getting home this evening. You know? So yeah, and it just caught on after that, and it wound up catching on in every group in the city nowadays. You can ask anybody where did they start developing who they are now. That's where it started, at Benny's.
We even like Galactic. I think those guys played there, right?
They were the Galactic Prophylactic.
That's right. They started off as Galactic
They
Prophylactic.
might not want to tell nobody that nowadays.
We'll tell it right now.
But that was the name of the band, and I mean everybody. Walter Wolfman Washington, Charmaine.
Jermaine Neville, yep.
Yes,
Yep.
we had like people like Wayne Bennett,
The guitar player.
Mighty Sam McLean. You know, for years, Mighty Sam McLean was the top artist on one of the biggest blues labels, Malaco.
Mm-hmm.
You know, then you'd have Eugene Scott. Anyway, he was the guitar player for a bunch of different bands, but most famous they were Ray Charles.
Wait, Ray Charles played at Benny's one time?
This guy who
Oh, play with. I was like, wait, I missed that.
was
Yeah.
kind of his go-to guy in the band, you know.
Gotcha.
And yeah, so I mean that little place started a whole lot of different things.
And it started all this. I mean, Benny's, when I started going there in the early 90s, I remember A, it had the scariest bathroom on the planet, A. And B, there was no sheetrock it was just like studs inside, and the tip jar, like the water
Well,
jug
you
tip
know,
jar, was like a
we
big
used
thing.
to call it Mr. Kentwood. It was a Kentwood jug. And but at first, when it started off, it would just be a bunch of coins and a few. It got to the point where we would wind up doing 3 shows a night, and in between each show, that that jug was full to the top. We was there to get a wire hanger and stick the hanger in there to
Fish
pull
the money
out.
out.
But it was like 3 times a night that thing would fill up with, sometimes hundreds, 50s, 20s, hundreds. That's that. I mean, it became a really good spot for local musicians because the people really loved what we were doing. They loved us, and it was so intimate. It was like you would, and at any time people could just jump up on stage and start dancing and whatever, and and it just caught on.
It was intimate and it was real, though. It felt very, very real. I mean, everybody was playing there.
It
Felt
was
real.
so real that Benny tried to fix some of the stuff that you're talking about, and people got pissed off. No, man, leave that alone. we don't want. Bring the gnats. What is it? The gnats for the bathroom, man. Bring that back. They wanted the gnats in the bathroom.
They wanted the gnats in the bathroom. Oh God! It was scary. It was scary as hell.
Like you said in the beginning, it had one of the scariest bathrooms.
That's what I'm saying.
But
Yeah.
I'm just saying, after he tried to clean it up, people said, "Bring the scary back, man." No, we like what we had before.
All right. So, moving from the gnats in the Benny's bathroom, the Neville Brothers, of course, the Yellow Moon record sold, I think, 500,000 copies at least. I mean, it was a huge record. You guys toured all over the world for it. Brothers Keeper, the follow-up, another great record. You guys had a great, great run. Through all that time, before you had those big records and afterward, you all were the closing act on the final Sunday of the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival for many years, a position that Trombone Shorty has now. Right. So back to the whole theme of the continuity and passing of the torch. Those shows, I mean, you guys always ended with, how did you end those Jazz Fest shows usually?
Well, the majority of the time, all of our shows ended with Aaron doing Amazing Grace.
Followed by
One Love. And then sometimes it was actually do Down by the Riverside before we did all of that. But that's the 2 that it would usually end with.
And it was hard to describe, I mean, just how spiritual that felt out there on the final day of the festival. Everybody's been out there for 2 long weekends. And for you guys, and the symbolism was, of course, this is the premier local band in New Orleans. You were from New Orleans, and even though you'd gone around the world, you still came back and played that festival and closed it out. And so to have that kind of very spiritual capper on the end of the whole festival was hugely meaningful. Did it feel that way to you guys? I mean, when you were up there playing in front of those crowds on that final Jazz Fest, I mean, did it feel like that little moment you had on the boat here with Shorty where it kind of got away from you and the spirit took over? Did you have that kind of sense of it?
It's always like that. I'm very grateful for the gift to be able to make other people happy. And for a little time in their life, whatever might be troubling them, make that go away for a while. And I know it's a gift, and what's the most special thing, though, is when you feel that coming back at you. When I feel that coming back from the audience, that's the most special feeling of all.
The special of special Jazz Fest performances that you guys did was when you guys came back for the first time after Katrina. That would have been the 2008 Jazz Fest. Y'all didn't play the first couple ones after the festival. There was a lot going on. Aaron's first wife, Joelle, was sick with cancer and died, and there was just a lot of reasons why you guys didn't play those first couple Jazz Fests. When you did come back and play, there's an account of it here that is in this very good book that I wrote, sorry. But let me just throw it out here, like this just to refresh you what happened at that 2008 Jazz Fest. You guys played Meet the Boys on the Battlefront, going back to the Indian thing with all the Indians out there. You did Fire on the Bayou, obviously. You did Voodoo. You did A Change Is Gonna Come. Aaron sang Tell It Like It Is and dedicated it to Joel, who had passed away earlier that year. Carlos Santana got on stage and did My Blood with you guys. It was all one show, okay? Let's see, you did Ain't No Use, Brother Jake, Yellow Moon, Brother John Is Gone, Iko Iko, then Amazing Grace, then One Love, and then Trombone Shorty came out with you guys, and you did Big Chief as the finale with, I think, just about every New Orleans musician in existence on stage. That's a Jazz Fest show right there. That is a Jazz Fest show. I don't know how you could have topped something like that, but I mean, that right there, that was like the whole history of New Orleans music in one show. It was an incredible thing to see. Did you guys walk off that stage thinking we've just done something really, really special?
I think we used to walk off stage feeling like that every time. You know, every time, because no matter where it was always like if it was 2 people or if it was 2,000, they was gonna get the same show, you know. And first of all, thanks to each and every one of y'all for being. They got so many other things y'all could have been doing on this boat, but here y'all are sitting here talking to us. So, that's very special to me, and thank you. I really appreciate it,
Absolutely, absolutely. So, and we've got a few minutes left, and I want to be able to take some questions from folks here, and then I think you may be going out back there and signing some stuff for folks after the session here. But now, let's recap. Art, your brother Art passed away. Charles passed away. Aaron is retired and living in upstate New York on a farm. So you are literally the last Neville of that generation standing. It's a responsibility. You've got to pass the torch now.
Yeah, I mean, it's like every time I hear that word legacy, now I kind of jump. Wait a minute, hold up, wait a minute. Let's hold off with that one for a minute, And yeah, but I mean, it feels great to have a torch to carry, And at this point, I have people that my son is in good form, ready to take what I have brought from my branch of the Neville family tree. He's ready to step forward, with that in good form with his band. Matter of fact, we will be on the cruise together next year.
That's right. That's right. That'll be something to see.
So Elmari Neville and the Fuel is the name of the band. And we both of us working on new projects. Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, I'm working on one with another young man, very unsung, Shamar Allen. Y'all know.
Yeah, well, see, they know, yeah. Trumpet player and singer.
Shamar Allen is producing Cyril Neville's upcoming record. We almost finished, too. Like one song from being finished. And the last song that we're working on right now is one from my 18-year-old grandson. So that's like I'm saying, the torch has got a few hands that could still be passed to,
That's right. You got a couple hands on that torch, right?
Yes.
Hold on to it. Is that record going to come out for Jazz Fest this year?
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
I mean, that's, to me, what other time of the year is there to release a record other than, I don't care if it's a Christmas record. That's the time. Jazz Fest is the time to do it,
It's a springtime Christmas every year at Jazz Fest. That's a good way to put it. All right. Well, let's open it up to questions, Cyril, and see if anybody got any questions out there. Any questions? Yes.
Cyril, what inspired you to so many of the songs you wrote with Royal Southern Brotherhood in your solo career are very political, and it's about social justice. And what was the inspiration for you to have so much of your music carry those kind of messages?
Well, the necessity for it. It's like, I think Nina Simone was the first person I heard say, "Why have a platform if you're not gonna say something, that's meaningful, that can help the the people coming after you. So yeah, and that didn't start with me then. It started from the beginning that you know um, I could see basically for every love song I wrote two of that kind. The wake up songs.
No, and you brought that to the Neville brothers. I mean, yeah, you were that kind of social conscience to a large degree in the band. You were the one that pushed that part of it. Yeah.
Boy, a lot of stuff I wrote didn't make it to the records. I mean, some of it did. Some of the good stuff did. Like Sister Rosa.
Sister Rosa, great song.
And Sister Rosa and the Wild Child of Tulips record are both registered in the Library of Congress.
Ah, that's cool. Yeah, that's quite an honor. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Okay, any other questions? Yep, in the back. Will they hear you sing again on this cruise?
Oh yeah. Well, I'm scheduled to do one more on the 11th with John Gross, but um, me and Joe Crown had already planned on doing a little sneak attack type thing. And now my friend Devin Allman is on the boat too, so that's probably I'm gonna be going up with him, and Tab Benoit is on the boat. Mark Boudreaux is on the boat. So I mean,
So
and it's like wherever I'm welcome.
I think you're pretty much welcome. Yeah, every place on this boat, even in the kitchen. If you want to help Chef Kevin, yeah, you're welcome everywhere. It's all good. Yep, in the back. Your connection to Jamaica and Cuba and the music of the
Well,
Azores.
I always
Spiritual connection.
I
Yeah.
have always said that New Orleans is the northernmost point in the Caribbean, and for centuries and centuries before anybody from Europe or anything came to this area of the world, it was already a melting pot. It was already a place that people came from different areas of the world to trade ideas, to trade goods and everything. So, and nothing has changed. The Mississippi River is still one of the most important means of getting your stuff to the market, you know. And so we have a very, very important role to play. That city does more than just second line, you know. But that's what we're known for. We're known for the food and the second line and all that, but people don't realize that that's one of the most important ports in the world, not just in the United States. That's one of the most important ports in the whole world, you know. And the fact that a lot of the wetlands, as we speak, are disappearing,
Right.
you know.
That didn't help. Yeah, that was part of it. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, that it's like what I learned when I was with this group called the Voice of the Wetlands with Tab and Wine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did these flyovers, and the guy was telling us, anyway you see a line going like that, that's nature. Anyway you see a straight line, that's you know who. Somebody who ain't got no business down there doing whatever they doing, you know. And so yeah, that's a lot of the pictures that I got to see of what used to be there and how quickly it disappeared. That's something that really needs more attention paid to it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Anybody else? Got one? Is it? Oh, there you go. Sorry. Was the Grateful Dead influence? Did you notice a change in your audience after you guys played with the Grateful Dead? Did you get a lot of their fans that came over?
Man, like night and day. Like Carnival and Ash Wednesday. You know? Yes, indeed, man. And it was like, the whole thing was, what I noticed first, you know, and this is before the internet.
Right.
Okay, these guys didn't have no record deal. They didn't have no management company. They didn't have all of the trappings that everybody would tell you you had to have for success. But they're selling out these arenas, you know. And so how are y'all doing that? No record deal, no hit record playing on the radio and everything. But every show, wherever it is sold out.
Right.
In record time. Soon as and like I said, this is before the internet. They were getting that word out to the next town that the show was going to, you know. So one of the first things that we learned about was the marketing end of it. Merchandising, you know, and like Bill Graham.
Great promoter, yeah.
Like Bill Graham is it's not about the money, but it's about the money.
He said it's not about the money, but it's about the money. Right, yeah.
See, in other words, you can't be all about the money all the time, but it's about the money all the time. You know, and I realized that they had this thing set up through this guy named, called him Wavy Gravy, and he dressed like a clown. And they had stuff set up in every town that they gave back. They would donate to these, they would find these places to donate money to that would help children. And that basically was our first lesson in what kept them, you know, relevant in the business, was that basically they were their own business. They didn't go outside of themselves for nothing.
Right.
You know.
Right. And I can't help noticing that you're wearing tie-dye as we speak. So obviously that influence.
Tie-dye with my son's name on it, Cyril Neville and the Fuel.
There you go. There you go. The legacy continues. Well, all right, guys. I think, Cyril, you got some prints that you made. I think he's going to be signing some stuff out down this exit right here afterward. And look for him throughout the rest of the cruise, popping up here and there, doing his thing. Once again, one more hand for Cyril Neville.